So you are thinking about trying to get your work published. You have poems, maybe they're sitting in a giant stack of papers, maybe they're on your desktop, maybe they're in a folder you haven't opened in a while because you're procrastinating and you're like, I want to get these out into the world, but I'm not sure how. Well, today we're going to be talking about publishing. We're going to be talking about what do you need to do in order to make your first poetry submission a success, or to have the greatest chance of success getting published. And yeah, along the way, if you have questions, things like that, things I could try to help with, I'll be happy to do so. My name is Jeff. I am a poet. I'm the founder of the Verses. I've been to fellowships, for instance, like the Cave Canem Fellowship, the Kalu Fellowship as well. I've been published in journals like Ninth Letter, Tar River, River Styx, The Journal, Cimarron, and things like that. So I want to try to help you get into the journals that you want to try to get into, because I've been able to do it for my career, and I think we can do it for yours too if we handle it strategically. Now, I will say that we've had to deal with some weather recently, which is slowly impacting us. There is a thunderstorm that's going to be coming through the area maybe within the next like half hour or so. So we're going to try to get through the most important content as soon as possible. And if we are unable to get to your question, or you have a point that you want to get to later, we'll try to handle it in a future video. But let's begin with just some basics that we want to consider. I think it may be helpful to maybe even just take a look at an example of a journal to walk you through some of the things that you need to be considering. We're going to be looking at a journal called Detroit. So this is a pretty selected journal. And so when you go to a website for a journal, let's say you found a publication and you're like, this is the place I would like to make a home for one of my poems. You want to go to the place. I would strongly suggest, hey, familiarize yourself with the actual issue. Okay. And so typically there'll be, if it's not right on the homepage, there'll be a place where you can find it. Okay. So you can go through issues. And one of the things that you kind of want to do, and as I go through this, I may lag a little bit, so my apologies for that, if that occurs, is you want to kind of look at the poems, read through it, or read through the writing, and decide, hey, does this in any way kind of resemble the writing that I do? And if the answer is yes, then hey, go ahead. And you're probably not going to be able to decide this just on one piece. You may need to look at a couple. But after looking through a couple, if you decided that, you know what, it's similar enough to what I'm doing stylistically that I think I could reasonably see my piece here, then we can move forward. So typically there's going to be a section of the website that says submit, and you're going to see typically it's going to say submission guidelines. Once we go through submission guidelines, they're going to tell you about all the things that you need to keep in mind. Some things I'm going to highlight for you that you want to particularly look for, although I encourage you to make sure you read all of the guidelines that you see. Some things you want to pay attention to. You want to see the platform that they're going to use. So most journals you're going to look for are either going to use Submittable, or they're going to have some sort of portal that's directly on their site. Those are the most common platforms. Okay. Things that you want to look out for. You want to look out for, do they accept simultaneous submissions? Simultaneous submissions means that you can submit a poem here, and you can also submit a poem, the same poem, to other places as well. So that's the first thing you want to look out for. Nowadays, the most common journals have simultaneous submissions. I'll be honest. There are still a few, though, that if you send them a poem, they want you to only submit that poem there. So you can decide if that's going to make sense for you. Some other things. You want to pay attention to this. Cover letters. So typically when you actually submit, you're going to have to put a cover letter. In that cover letter, you also want to include a brief third-person biography statement. So you want to have a statement for yourself. I would say, honestly, have a couple of statements ready. Okay, so I would try to have maybe like a 50-word letter ready, or basic kind of just bio for yourself, like a 50-word bio. Let's say, I don't know, 2-3 sentences or so. And then you may also want to have a 75-word bio as well for things that are a little bit more involved. in general, the 50-word bio is probably the one you're going to use more often. In that 50-word bio, some typical things you're going to see. And if you're looking for inspiration, you're like, I don't know what to put in my bio. Well, one of the things you can do is see what other people are doing. So you can see, oh, Luther. Luther was actually in my, he cut his hair. My Kavekana court. Let me make this big so you guys can see as well. So what you can do is kind of use these as your metrics. Okay, so if you have a collection, you want to name your collection. If you don't have a collection, that's okay. If you've gotten awards, so for instance, this book, Best Books in New Yorker, 2022. Okay, if you created something, you can mention that. And also, if you have pieces that are published, it's like Seattle Times, Forbes, things like that, you can put those on as well. So those are some things you want to be considering. Publications, achievements, books. You might be like, but Jeff, this is my very first time submitting, so what do I do in that case? Okay. If that's the situation, what I would say is, hey, maybe there's a theme that your writing focuses on. And in fact, that's something I would even encourage you in your packets. I think it can be helpful if the submission you do, instead of having random pieces thrown together, if there's anything that kind of ties them together, that might be something you want to consider. Because then what you can do in your bio is you can say, hey, these are part of a project focused on whatever. So for instance, I was helping one poet with a project related to helping men navigate grief, and so they have poems related to that experience. Okay, so that might be my bios. So-and-so is a poet whose pieces are part of a project dedicated to how men cope with grief. Something like that. Then once you've kind of given some information about the work, mentioning things, for instance, like your location, and then maybe how people can find you. If you have a website, your most active social media, things like that. So that could be a very basic sort of bio if you don't have a lot of credentials. You could also mention that, like, hey, this is my first publication. Journals like it when they discover people. So that can actually work to your advantage in some situations. If your work is of the quality that they're looking for, it could be advantageous for you to not be published, potentially. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. You're not necessarily at a disadvantage if you're not published. It can be helpful because when you have more publications, it's almost like a vetting process. It shows that you've been in the game and you know how the system works. But it's not the end all be all. Okay. So cover letters, you'll want those. A basic kind of cover letter format. Let's talk about it. We're going to make a quick cover letter together. The first thing that we're going to need for a cover letter when we're handling our submissions. So let's say, again, we want to submit here. Let's actually wrap up the guidelines first, and then we will work on the cover letter. But that kind of does cover most of it. See anything else that they mentioned? To tell you what they want. Notice that the bio is third person, so don't use I's. You're going to see that they ask for North American rights, first North American rights to publish. What that basically means is that after the poem has been published online or in print or whatever media they use, once that happens, you can then do whatever you want with the poem. However, you have to mention that the poem first appeared in this journal. That's why if you look at a poetry book, on like the last page, there'll be like an acknowledgments page, and on that acknowledgments page, it'll typically list the poem title and the location was first published. Okay, you still have the rights to the poem, you still own the poem, but you do have to give credit where the poem first appeared. That's very common in the poetry world. All right, so all that's done. We read through it. We're like, I think this is a place. Okay, some things we want to know. We want to know who we're actually talking to. So, because when we write our actual cover letter, we want to be able to address people. Who do we know who we're sending this to? Who is, for instance, Detroit? It's kind of a tricky journal to send to because they are very large. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the top, or sometimes it's at the bottom. Sometimes they have like a contact page. Typically it's at the top in the about section, or you're basically looking for this word. You're looking for like masthead. Masthead means who is the staff over here. And so here's the thing. You're like, oh my God, they have all these people. There's no way I can like write all these guys, right? There's not. They're not expecting you to. Okay. So what I would probably try to do, since we're submitting in poetry, we're going to address a couple of people. We're going to address Peter. He's very friendly. So say hey to him. We'll address Heidi. We'll address Chris. So we'll address those three. And then we're worried about the poetry team, right? So let's see if we can find who are the poetry editors nowadays. I feel like every time I look at Detroit, they have more staff. Who have they got editing poetry? So we're going to, and again, would they have multiple editors once more? Gonna let the siren pass. Okay, so they got Sarah, they got Emily, they got Zoe. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna search. Let's try to pick maybe like the first. There's not actually too many. We can do all of them. So we're gonna address all of them by last name. Okay. So our cover letter is gonna start something like this, or at least my cover letter. If you have a different cover letter, that's fine. This is just what I do. So my cover letter is gonna look something like this. Allow me to change how I'm sharing my screen. So I need you to kind of see everything. All right, so we'll put this here. Whoa, crazy view. Okay. So we're going to say, Mr. LaBerge, Seaborn, Mr. Crowder, slide down to our poetry people. Miss Afshar, Miss Chinquayani, Dorado. Okay, I got two more. We're almost there. And, or actually not and. Kiefer. Okay, so once you have your people, and you know that there's more people, what you can say is, and the adroit team. And that just lets them know, for all the people that we didn't mention, we got you. Okay, that's done. I'm going to change my view again. As I'm going through this, if you guys have questions, feel free to post them. This is a Q&A in addition to an info session. So once I have them, what we want to do is we want to say something like this. Attached, please find the following pieces. Colon. And then when you have poem titles, they go in between quotation marks. It's like blank, blank, and blank. In general, when I send out submissions, I usually do 3 pieces. If you're doing 5, you can do 5. But you want to name them all. Okay? The next thing that I would do, you don't have to do this, but this is what I do, is I want to show them that I'm familiar with their journal. So something that I may do, and I'll give you a very brief version of this. Okay, this is what I did when I took submissions. How do I put this? I'm a little bit lazier with one. I'm not really submitting right now because my approach has changed. But before I stopped submitting, I certainly got lazier. And I think like, especially once you have like credentials and things like that, it makes it easier to be lazy, or maybe you're just not as hungry. But when I was first submitting, I'll show you what I was doing. And I like to think it helped me. I would read the issue again, and I would try to find one piece that really resonated. Because I want to let them know that I read this and I was serious about it. I enjoyed it. So let's check out this poem really quick. Okay. And I'm obviously just going to give you a very abbreviated version, but I'm just going to kind of read this really quick. Here's some snow. This is the weekend. Okay, so one quick thing I may say. So I want to read the piece and kind of pick out maybe 1, 2, 3 things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the title. And say something like, go back to our cover letter. I've enjoyed your recent issue, particularly. Whoa, that really funked up with my formatting. Let's not have that be like size 1,000. Okay. So attached, please find the following pieces, blank, blank, blank. I've enjoyed your recent issue, particularly name a poem by Seth Leeper. I was drawn to his world building, especially in the opening lines of the poem, as that tends to be an area of focus for me. I hope that my pieces are able to convey that attention to detail the way his poem has. Okay, so just a quick note to let them know that, hey, I read a little bit of your journal. I'm not just like sending out to thousands of pieces without really thinking about it. No, I'm actually paying attention to you. I appreciate your time and consideration. Take care. Jeff. Okay. Let's try to get everything kind of formatted the same way. There we go. Okay, and then after that, your cover letters. Like Jeff Anderson founded the verses to help poets achieve creative and financial independence. Kalu and Kave Kalam. Fellow. Jeff's work can be found at ninth letter, first six, Indiana Review, the Journal, and similar places. Ta-da! We have a cover letter. Look at that. Okay, so that's just a quick example of a cover letter that you will need to prepare as you're submitting out to places. Okay. If you have questions, if you're watching this in the future, if you're watching in the present, and you're like, I have some more questions about this process, you can let me know, and I'll be happy to try to give you some heads up on that. Okay, but that's kind of the basic processes before submitting. Okay. So as you're submitting, some other things you'll probably want to be thinking about. You got to track your pieces. You have to keep track of everything, especially if you are submitting to multiple places at once. If you're submitting to multiple places at once, then what are you going to do when a poem gets accepted somewhere? And you're like, great, but I sent this same poem to 20 different journals. I can promise you, those journals, if you don't get in touch with them and they accept the poem too, they're going to be very upset with you because you didn't tell them. So every time you get a poem published and it's out of other places, you have to get in touch. How do you get in touch with them? Typically, you can either email them, so you can find the email address, but the most common way you'll need to do that is through Submittable. So maybe we should take a look at what Submittable actually looks like, in case you're not familiar with that. If you're thinking about submitting at all, you're going to have to make a Submittable account at some point. So let's see what Submittable looks like. I have not used Submittable in like a year. So let's get in this bad boy. All right, so this is what Submittable looks like. And again, this is at submittable.com. Okay, and as I'm getting this ready, by the way, if you're looking at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see something that says about the substation. It just lets you know about that. If you're trying to get poems edited and things like that, we have a community space where we do workshop poems. You post a poem, we give you feedback. It's private, so that way you can still submit places, because a lot of times journals don't like it when you post poems online, like on your social medias or whatever. So ours is private, so they can't find it. So you'll be able to post those poems elsewhere without concern. Okay. I will say that feedback portion is paid, and if you're like, I'm not really looking for a paid thing for editing, cool. There's also free categories as well, where you can just kind of dive into poems a little bit. We have like free writing questions, prompts, and also some discussion questions to help you just approach your work in a new way that are all free. So feel free to visit versepoetry.com/substation to check that out if you're thinking about taking this seriously. But in addition to that, you're going to need to make a Submittable account at some point if you're serious about this. So this is what Submittable looks like. Oh, they've added some things. Cool. See if I remember all my stuff. Oh no, maybe I don't. Maybe I do. Hey, I do. Great. All right, so we're in. Okay. So, let's say that you need to get in touch with a place. I think that so let's see, active. All right. So it's fine. This is actually whatever, but it's not right. Okay, so this, look at this submission from 2016. It just has no response. So let's say I want to get in touch with them for whatever reason, because who knows? Sometimes that happens. Okay, so let's say that like I submitted them and then I need to withdraw a poem because the poem got accepted elsewhere. What I'm going to do is you're going to go up to messages. Oh no, you can't do that. Okay. You want the messages to be able to leave a message. If you don't see that, then what you need to do is you need to email them. Okay, there should be a button here that says send messages. Let's imagine that there is that button. So what I'm going to do is, let's imagine that this is not in notes. This is actually in messages. What I'll say something like, a note that the poem blank has recently been accepted elsewhere. I apologize for the inconvenience. Jeff. And that's your note. Done. That's pretty much all you need to do. That's all you need to do, and that lets them know, okay, don't use that poem anymore. Okay? That's all you need to do. So again, that'll be under messages. If in messages you can't send a message, then you need to send them an email. Okay? Don't send them a note. Don't do what I'm doing. Don't send them a note. Okay. While we're in Submittable, Submittable has a couple things that are really helpful. So if you're trying to find some journals to submit to, What you can go to is go to Discover. And you're going to see they have all kinds of stuff happening. But you're like, I just want poetry. So what we're going to do is let's just type in poetry. And now I can see some upcoming poetry things. Look at all this stuff that's ending in like 4 or 5 hours. You can see the timeline. But you can like scroll down and kind of see some things that are happening through different dates and things. Not all journals use Submittable. Okay, not all journals are going to let you know about upcoming deadlines through Submittable. Okay, so it's not the only place to use. But it is a great place to start if you're trying to find a home for your work. Okay, and it's free. One other place that may be helpful, especially for those of you who are looking into more selective journals, what you can do is, what is it? Like Clifford, here it is, Clifford Garstein. He has a list. I will put this, it's this guy. I'll be honest, I don't know anything really about him except that he makes this list. So we appreciate him making that list. I will put this into the comments as well, so you can kind of play around with this. His system there is no perfect system for ranking. He ranks a lot on, I believe, is like pushcart prizes. Okay, so like if you get more poems in the pushcart, then you get a higher ranking. Okay. The most recent rank you'll find on the left. You can see the previous rank on the right. Okay, and a lot of times it's just kind of like some basic shuffling, but a lot of the journals are on the top 100 or however many are there, and just kind of like bouncing around. So if you're also, this is another place that you can use to kind of just get an idea of like, hey, I want to get published somewhere. Here are some journals you can check out. There's a lot. Look at them all. Okay. In general, not always, but in general, the ones that are higher up are the more respected journals. Not always. Again, just kind of to give a general idea. Okay. So something to look out for there if you're trying to find places to get submitted to. Another thing that we should probably be discussing is we should spend some time talking about rejection. So as you submit, you're going to get rejected. You're going to get more rejections than acceptances. If you get more acceptances than rejections, I think you need to start asking yourself, are you submitting? Maybe we need to start looking at other places to submit to. Okay. To look at examples of what rejections look like, again, I'm not really submitting anything crazy recently, but I'll try to show you some different types of rejections. Okay, so so let's look at this one. Okay, so let's just take a look at types of rejections. Okay. Okay, so this was from years ago. From Muzzle. Okay, so rejection looks like this. Dear Jeff, thank you very much for submitting. We read your work interest before we do not be using it. Okay. Please keep in mind, we're only able to accept a small percentage of poetry submissions. Imagine that that's the only thing that this said. Then I would say that that's probably it's just a general rejection. Okay. If it only had down to submissions, this is a general rejection. That's the one that they probably send to like 90%, if not more, of their rejections. Okay. After that, you can start getting a hint that you're getting closer if you get messages, for instance, like the next part where it says, we did want you to know your packet made quite far in our selection considerings. Okay. A note like that is not necessary for them to do. Okay. It's much easier for them to just do the faster rejection, the impersonal one. It's much easier for them. They can go on with their lives. So if they do anything that's even subtly suggests that they paid a little extra attention to your work, you need to understand that that is a very big achievement for you, and that the next time that their window is open and you're eligible, you should submit again. Okay, don't do it immediately unless they specifically say, hey, send us new work now. Wait until, wait a couple months or wait until their next submission cycle and then submit again. Okay. If a journal tells you to submit again, then that means you really should submit again. Okay. Don't take that lightly. Okay. That's what a more personal rejection looks like. I think this last one, I wanted to find ones that are just poems. This one might be more general. All right. This one to me reads like a general rejection. Thank you for your submission, Chestnut Review. Although we must decline, we appreciate a chance to consider it. Sure. Please not interpret this judgment of your art as a whole. Individual taste, and though we decline this round, encourage you to keep writing. This to me feels very general. It sounds like they're trying to be nice about it, but it feels very general and impersonal. Okay. So that's a more general one. If you're doing like contests, let me see. What's the contest I did? Like, I think I did Indiana. Oh, they might have their own little portal. Frost. Okay, so here's one. So Frost Place, they have like a chapbook thing from a while ago. Okay. So then your rejections can get nicer and nicer. So for instance, this was for, again, a chapbook. So congratulations on being a finalist. Though it was not selected, your Frost Place was selected 1 out of 10 finalists from a pool of 482. Okay. So that's, again, going through things, and then they may put you on a list of like the finalists, and they'll put that on their website and stuff like that. And you can use that, by the way, for your bio. So you could say, hey, I finalist at, this competition and things like that. So that can be helpful. And then for what does an acceptance look like? Let's see, acceptances. Okay. Oh, here it goes. All right. All right. Acceptances tend to be pretty short and sweet. It's like your interference. Thank you for sending us 20 pounds of meat. Da, da, da. We love it and would like to publish it in the next issue of Indiana Review. Be in touch shortly with more formal letter. And then they get in touch with you. And typically all the contract to sign or something like that. Okay. So that's what acceptance could look like. All right. So hopefully that gives you an idea of like different types of rejections you may get and correspondences and things. One of the last things that comes to mind, at least for right now, that's going to be helpful from a submission perspective is we want to be thinking about how are we tracking everything, because you're going to have a lot of poems out potentially. When I was at Kabe, I was speaking with Taimba Jess. He won the Pulitzer for his collection Olio, and we were talking about just how many places he had the collection out before it was published. And he's like, you know what? It was always at contests. At any given moment, it was out at 30 different contests at once. One, that's a lot of money just to, thousands of dollars in contests. But you're going to have a lot of submissions out if you're taking this game seriously. So what do we need to track? I will try to show you. And maybe my approach isn't going to be how you want to handle it yourself, but some basic information that you'll need for your database. All right, you can see my screen okay. All right, so this is how I would track things when I was submitting things more regularly. Okay, I would have a column for the journal name. After that, I would have, you want 5 columns because that in general is the max amount of poems that you can submit. Okay, even if you're just submitting 3. So 5 columns, you want to write down the names of the poems that you're submitting. Okay. And then the last thing is I include the date. Okay, so you don't need like a ton of information. Basically, you need the journal, the poems you put there, and when you submitted it. Okay. For me, when I get a rejection, I put it in gray. If I get an acceptance, I put it in gold or yellow. Okay? So you can kind of see how things go. Okay? at different places. So that's kind of just the basic information that you want to be tracking as you go through this. Okay. All right. Hello to you, Ultra. Cool. Glad we made the recommendations. Appreciate the kind words, man. Best wishes to your channel too. All right. So that's the general information you want to be keeping track of if you're sending out submissions. Okay. If you have other questions about tracking, be sure to let me know. Well, that gets us through kind of just the nitty gritty for basics for getting your work out into the world. Okay, so again, in case you're just joining us now, you'll want to backtrack to see, 1, how do you find places to send your journal to? 2, how do you get in touch with places to actually send the submission? 3, how do you create the cover letter for your submission? 4, what should you expect in terms of the correspondence you'll have with them in terms of rejections and acceptances? And then 5, how do you actually keep track of all that information? Okay. Other things that are going to be helpful for you in your submissions journey is, hey, you got to meet poets, get in touch with poets, reach out to poets, start building relationships with journals. You know, if you read an issue of a journal and you read a poem that you really, really like, it's okay to like send them a message. Just like fill out a lot of them have contact forms. Just send out a contact form like, hey, I really like that one piece. You know, start building up that relationship with editors and things like that. If you attend retreats and fellowships, you're going to meet people who are editors or have connections to journals. And you'll want to also, you know, those are things that typically get mentioned in cover letters. You know, like I worked with so-and-so at, you know, whatever experience, you know, and I'm really glad to be able to send something to them. Those things do matter. Look, it's an industry, it's a business like anything else. Okay, so connections are important in relationships. But also just taking the time to let, you know, praising people, you know, acknowledging the things that people are doing. People appreciate that. I'm sure you would appreciate it too if people did that to you. If after this stream is done, if you guys have additional questions about submitting or anything like that, let me know, because I'll be happy to try to help you and get you to your publishing goals. Beyond that, I'm going to head out. Guys, thank you so much for your time. There's a lot of resources out there for poetry, so the fact you're here is greatly appreciated. We would love to see you over at the Substation if you're trying to get pieces ready for publication, or if you're just trying to find a space to do some writing exercises and things with other writers. So again, you go to diversipoetry.com/substation. I will see you all later. Hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon.